good evening. How are you doing today on this Monday, or good afternoon if you're watching somewhere else in the world where it's not evening yet. Today I'm going to talk to you about the glute bridge exercise, which is one of my favourites, but it didn't used to be. I will tell you all about that in a minute. But first of all, if you are watching me, please do give me a thumbs up or a little heart symbol to let me know you're out there, or please do drop a comment in the box if you have any questions at any time, or perhaps you could share it with a friend or tag a friend if you think they will be interested in this information. So let's talk about the glute bridge. What is it? I'm going to give you a little demo with some variations to start you off so that you can have a go at this at home. So this is lying on your back and your feet are fairly close to your bum, and you want your feet to be in alignment. If you're not sure how to do that, you can touch your big toes together and then just walk them out just a little way. And you want to make sure that your feet and your knees are roughly at right angles to the floor. So from here, you're going to engage your glutes, so your butt muscles and your hamstrings in the backs of the legs, and you are going to lift the hips up and then roll it back down again. So for this variation, it's a little different to the yoga variation, where I believe they come up more into the shoulders, and I'm not a yoga teacher, so we're not working on that. We just want to go for a nice diagonal line from your shoulders all the way to your knees, and really focusing on getting those hips nice and high. So my glutes are working super hard. We'll talk about that in a minute. I'm thinking about squeezing my inner thighs together, although they're not touching. And I'm thinking about engaging the abdominals so that my rib cage stays closed. If you want to add some variation, perhaps you could hold it here for a little while, or you could lift one heel up and then the other heel. If you wanted to take it a little bit more, you could always lift the leg up off the floor, even straightening the leg, or even lowering the leg down for a few reps. If you've done a Pilates class, you might be familiar with these ones. I'm going to roll it down now. Another way you might want to add some variety for some strength building is perhaps to add some weight. If you have one of these at home, or perhaps some dumbbells, you could add a little bit of a strength element to it by holding the weight over your pelvis. Make sure it's not sitting heavily on your pelvis. You might need your hands to just support it a little bit, and then you can roll up. Sometimes we call these ones glute thrusts because they need a little bit of oomph in the glutes to get it working. And then the other one I wanted to mention was one we spoke about a couple of weeks ago, rolling very, very slowly through the lumbar spine. So really contracting the glutes as always, and then really focusing on real spinal segmentation. So trying to visualize all of the different vertebrae and peeling them up off the floor one by one to get a really nice flexion in the lower back, in the lumbar spine, coming all the way up, nice and slowly, really thinking about peeling the spine up off the floor, and then as you come back down, same thing, really allowing one vertebrae to touch at a time. So I'm really, really, really holding on to my glutes and articulating slowly down. Obviously you'll want to keep your head looking up. I keep looking at the camera to talk to you guys. And rolling all the way down through the vertebrae. So that's just a few quick variations on the theme, so you can go and have a play afterwards. Feel free to ask any questions on those if you have any doubts. But what I really wanted to talk to you about was the use of the glutes in this exercise, because for years I did not really even understand what that meant or how to get them involved. So I understood that it was a glute exercise, but I
for me it didn't work. I really didn't like it, and the two reasons I didn't like it was because I would feel twinging in my knees, and sometimes it would be quite painful, and then also I would really feel it in my low back, and so it was it was told that it was a glute exercise, but I just wasn't feeling it in my glutes the way I thought I was supposed to. So I have to give a shout out to the amazing Ashley Lopez, and it was after training with her and taking her integrated dance and some privates that I actually understood that I was supposed to do the work. I was supposed to be actually physically contracting my glutes to make this work. So I feel like a bit of a plonker now. It seems like such a obvious thing, but I'm just sharing this with you in case you've been in the same situation. Perhaps you've had in a Pilates class perhaps, and they're not cueing you to use your glutes, or perhaps you haven't thought to use them before and you're not too sure why you've got uncomfortableness in your low back or your knees or something like that. So you really have to actually physically contract the glutes yourself, tell them to squeeze in order to lift those hips. And it's quite hard work at first. I found it really challenging because my butt wasn't used to doing this work at all. It was like, it was quite a challenge to really push through and start to use my glutes and not let my low back take over. This is why I was feeling the discomfort, was because I was using my hamstrings, yes, and I was using my abdominals because in Pilates class that's what they tell you what to do, but not realizing that I was supposed to be using my glutes as well. A lot of the support was coming from my low back, and these muscles are small, they're quadratus lumborum, and they're pretty overworked anyway. We're using them a lot for support in our daily lives, so they were getting a lot of extra work that they didn't necessarily need to be doing, and weren't getting actually a nice stretch and release here. So that's one reason why. The other thing that I mentioned, the sore knees, I have pretty tight hip flexors from sitting a lot. Of course, I used to have an office job, and I'm still doing admin and that kind of thing. And also as belly dancers, when we are in our slightly bent knee neutral belly dance position, this again is shortening your hip flexors. Plus on top of that, we do all of this repetitive hip movement, which again is all of these constant contractions in the hip flexors, which can just lead to really short, tight hip flexors that aren't particularly strong. So if we're not doing something with the antagonist muscle on the other side, so the glutes, then this can actually cause problems. It can cause imbalances in the pelvis, for example, which can travel down to the knees because we've got hip flexor muscles that connect into the knees, and it's basically contracting too much and pulling the knees out of alignment, which is where you feel the pain. And then when you're doing something like this glute bridge, which is stretching out the hip flexors, if they're too tight, then they're going to pull on the knees. So this is why you need to use the glutes. I hope that makes sense. If you already knew that, if you're like, oh my goodness, I've been doing glute bridges for years and I always use my glutes, of course, like, why didn't you think of that, Charlotte? Then fair enough, good on you. I'm sharing this for those of you out there who for years and years and years spent, for years I spent so much time doing this exercise and being cued to do this exercise and just really not enjoying it. Now I love this exercise. It's a really simple one. You can just get down and do it at any time. I wouldn't recommend going straight into it from being cold, particularly in this cold weather, those of us in the Northern Hemisphere. Make sure you are a little bit warm first of all before you go into this. But once you're a little bit warmed up, you can gradually ease into it rather than going into a really fast version or a really strong version to build up into it. But it's super easy to do. You don't need the weight. That was just an extra bonus one. You can do so many progressions of this exercise without actually needing any extra equipment, and it's fantastic for strengthening the glutes. So we spoke a little bit about low back pain and we spoke about knee pain while doing it, but a lot of us feel this just in our everyday lives as well. And as I mentioned, that just doing something like strengthening the glutes can really help to keep the pelvis stable and more in alignment, because we're sitting all day. Our hip flexors tend to be shortened. If we are belly dancers and we're in our belly dance posture all the time, plus we're doing all of that hip work, which we love doing so much, and we love our belly dance, but we do need to make sure that we open out the hip flexors and stop them being so contracted. So engaging the glutes, which is the opposite muscle, is going to help to allow the hip flexors to release. It's something called the reciprocal inhibition. So basically that means that when one muscle contracts, the other muscle releases. So you have opposite muscles, basically, just to give you a little bit of the science behind it without going into too much detail. So I think that's all I had to say about this exercise today. Use your butt, do some glute bridge, it's fantastic. Do a little warm up, then get down and just do a few of the bridges each day if you can, just to strengthening the glutes, open up in the hip flexors, and it also has some other good core benefits. You're also working in your hamstrings, you're working in the inner thigh muscles, plenty of other benefits in this exercise. I cannot recommend it highly enough. So if you have any questions, please do drop them in the comments, and if you would like to share it with a friend who you think would be interested in this, or if you want to tag the friend in the post, then please do go ahead and do so. And if you have any requests for further info, for further videos, then please do drop them in the comments below as well. I'm going to drop a link in the comments box in case you're not already on my mailing list. I do these videos every week, different topics. Sometimes we're talking about body movement, strength, exercise stuff. Sometimes we're talking a bit about mindset and practice. Sometimes we're talking a bit about belly dance. But I'll always send you a little reminder afterwards via email if you are on my mailing list, and I can let you know about other things going on. So thank you very much for watching today. Again, don't forget to ask any questions if you have them, or give me a thumbs up or a little heart if you haven't already. I've seen lots of people have been jumping on this thread today, so it's been a good one for you guys, I hope. And I will see you next time. Take care.